every single state that tries to deviate from a norm of what the pre-established principle is fails. French Revolution killed millions of people. Russian Revolution killed millions of people. Chinese Revolution killed millions of people. Taiping Rebellion, which is a Christian fanatical sect in China, third bloodiest war in history.
I want to point out that Vaush said, "What about us?"
Right.
Vaush doesn't even know the philosophical grounding of the American Revolution.
Yeah, they didn't pull it out of their butt.
What the fuck?
They just make it up. Yeah.
Yes. They fucking argued, oh, democracy, oh, republic, oh, what the fuck? Sent letters back and forth, debated it. Yes. This is our heritage, Vaush. Stop hating America.
Every single time you try to make a revolution, make a new utopia fails.
What about
revolutions that succeed are
Look,
those
he
that
says
work
it
upon
again.
pre-existing.
He says it again. What about us?
Right.
What about us?
I think he's going to get into it because America was built on pre-existing principles.
I know he does. He completely just destroys
I assume that's
Vaush.
what they're going to talk about.
This is, I think this is about the time that I DM'd you and said he's destroying Vaush.
I see.
But you disagreed. You bastard.
We'll see. We'll go. We'll see.
Pre-existing systems like the Glorious Revolution in the UK, the American Revolution, Europe, and others. And I'm glad we agree on that.
Glorious Revolution, Magna Carta, right? That was UK.
Maybe.
Where's our resident Brit?
I don't know anything about the Brits. Okay, these Proto-Americans.
We could invite Sargon on it. He would talk about the Magna Carta for an hour easily.
I know. Disgusting.
I know about the Magna Carta. Don't let him gaslight us.
Wait, all these revolutions were predicated, at least in some respect, off of the society they were built upon.
So is everything.
Right. I don't think the French Revolution was any more a rejection of the previous principles of its nation than the American was.
Yeah, what the fuck, Vaush? That's exactly what it was. That's where the whole left and right comes from.
Right.
Stay with the established order or deviate from the status quo.
I want to see what the argument is here because I don't remember.
For the colonies,
it was totally
that it
was,
from.
bro. Like they in the French Revolution.
So was America.
The French Revolution outlawed religion. It killed hundreds of thousands of people. It created total suffrage.
All things Vaush is in favor of, especially killing hundreds of thousands of people.
It renamed the names of the weak. It killed 5% of the population.
Look, Vaush is giggling because he loves that idea. He's like, oh, I'm going to steal that one.
Right.
Population or the nobility. It took the entire economy into the state's hands in the Revolutionary War. The U.S. Revolution basically just said, you can keep your colonial legislatures, but we're getting rid of England, and we're going to make a really weak centralized
all the things
government.
the French...
There you go. That's
totally.
That's the argument.
Totally.
That's a good argument. Yeah.
It's a great argument.
Right. American Revolution, we had all these institutions in place already, but they were just beholden to a king across the sea somewhere. And we were saying, fuck off, king. We're not going to be beholden to you anymore. We're going to do our own thing with these institutions that we've constructed.
Right. And they established the institute. It's amazing that what's the Constitution? I think it's only like 21 pages or something. It's tiny by comparison to these crazy laws that we're foisting on the American public.
I mean, and
now.
that was the second attempt. Constitution is attempt 2. Attempt 1 failed.
Well, yes. Yeah. And also the Bill of Rights was added because it wouldn't pass without the Bill of Rights. People wanted protection. They're like, you're going to form this institution that's probably going to, be as bad as England. They're going to want to put soldiers in our homes that we're going to have to feed and shit. Like,
yeah, Bill of Rights was 2.5. They're like, listen, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Or I guess it's like 2.1. They're like, wait a minute. We got to add some things here. some things are missing.
First 10 amendments to the Constitution. Right. Yeah. This is your heritage, Vaush. Why don't you know this?
That's a very good argument.
Yeah.
It's a very good argument, yeah.
Revolution were based on Enlightenment principles, which was the ideological history of
the
that
American
nation.
Revolution.
I agree. That's my point. Yeah, I think that these revolutions are just difficult business, and sometimes they succeed and sometimes they don't. But I'm not talking...
Look at this. He's trying to say the American Revolution and the French Revolution.
Well,
they're basically the same.
The difference, and this is why he would never want to admit this, the difference between the American Revolution and the French Revolution is radicalism. Because with the American Revolution, the moderates won and controlled the flow of the country. They weren't throwing over all their institutions. They weren't burning the country down. They're like, we just want to do what we're doing, but like away from the king. You know, we want to have some kind of, we'll create our own central authority that'll be much weaker than the king.
It was though a switch from autocracy to democracy.
Yes.
And was the French Revolution a switch from autocracy to democracy, or was it just overthrowing the autocracy? And
it was kind of an autocracy to another autocracy.
Yeah,
to an oligarchy.
That's what I thought.
Don't know
yeah,
how you would define it?
Yeah.
I don't think in that period of time was the Great Terror. I don't think people were voting. I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Right.
But the difference is that in the French Revolution, the radical element won because there were moderate elements that were like, okay, we can't throw everything away.
Right.
And this is what if is getting at. In the French Revolution, they didn't say, it wasn't the American Revolution. They're like, we just want to change away from an autocracy. We want to get the king out of here. We want to kind of maintain what we're doing and add some minor changes and some reforms here and there. In the French Revolution, it's like, we want to change everything completely, turn everything upside down, get rid of all of it. This is all bad, and start over. We're literally renaming the days of the fucking week.
I know, that's so crazy.
Okay? Yeah, like, and there were moderate forces in the French Revolution, but they lost.
Right.
They got edged out or killed by the radical leftists, I guess, in that revolution, who just wanted to change everything and wanted to go from monarchy to their glorious utopia.
I'm gonna read a book on this too. I want to be an expert in everything.
Yeah, you should read a book on
French Revolution. I've only read about it in other books where they talk about it briefly. So,
because I haven't read books on it, but I've listened to multiple videos on it, and it's just like a total fucking clusterfuck.
Yeah,
it's just total disaster.
Yeah,
and that's what's so funny with Jacobin magazine, like. Calling themselves the Jacobins is the equivalent of the Young Turks calling themselves the Young Turks. And People are just like, okay with it. You're like, it's not a good thing. I don't know why you think this is good to be called.
They're the ones that murdered everyone. They're political opposition and the elites.
Right. It's like you're naming yourself after radicals who fucked everything up. And you think it's good.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
I don't know the situation.
Jacobins, sorry.
I'm sure there's plenty of elites that deserve to, be deposed, violently deposed even. But there's so many situations where people have misjudged, dominance hierarchy or competence hierarchies for dominance hierarchies, and they dispose of the people who are actually providing the food for everyone.
It's kind of like with the Russian Revolution, where the moderates, and again, it's the same thing. There's a moderate faction and there's a radical leftist faction.
Right.
And the moderate faction's like, we want sort of like a more liberal Western democracy-ish system, and we're willing to let the king and his family, live, just not be king.
Right.
And the radicals are like, no, you have to fucking kill them.
Right. Yeah.
And we need to burn the whole thing down and start from scratch.
Yeah.
Talking about revolution, I've never mentioned revolution for my system.
You can trace that back to ancient history. Why would you go with that precedent? Why wouldn't you follow the precedents that work?
Neither did. Do you think that they were following a precedent when they became... Wait, please. You think they were following a precedent when America became a democracy? Of course not. Yeah. Obviously not.
England was a democracy beforehand. All of the local governments kept their power in America. It was a parliamentary system. They had two separate parties, the Whigs.
What's going on?
Vaush muted himself and didn't realize he was muted.
Oh, okay.
You've never done that, so we're good.
That's true.
And the Tories, they would alternate power. You had prime ministers, all that stuff. Also, got to tell you, I need to run at 9.
Yeah, all that stuff, I believe, came in with the Magna Carta. So England did strip a lot of power away from the king. Like this business class rose up. They had this thing called the Magna Carta that they, forced the aristocracy's hand and the business community. This is one of the beautiful things about capitalism, because capitalism did kind of pry a lot of power away from these hereditary elites.
Right.
I understand.
Well, and another difference here too is that, and this is with the Constitution, even before that, with the Articles of Confederation, it's better, like, it would be better if you're starting something new, it's probably better to give your central authority less power.
Yeah, than more
and
power.
Then you start working up to giving them more power that's appropriate. Or with the French Revolution, it was like the opposite. Yeah, like they went from an authoritarian system to an authoritarian system with like still a lot of central control over everything.
Right.
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. My bad. I understand. It was a monarchy.
But it was it's like Britain today, but to a lesser degree. It was a monarchy with a republic, with a monarchy it was a monarchy with a democracy as well. The Americans just couldn't vote in said democracy because the Americans were treated under the British system like they were a subject nation that Britain conquered, like India. But at the same time, the Americans said that they were Englishmen and thus deserved to get voting rights.
It was not a democracy. It was a parliamentary monarchy. But
Bro, are we going to say the only democracies in the world are New England town
the
halls?
Most powerful person.
Yeah, he's totally fucking.
Sargon, where are you? I can hear his British sensibilities are like, wee.
He totally shit on Vaush right there. He did. He was like, "Oh, please." Vaush is totally grabbing at straws here. He doesn't know any of this stuff.
Sure.
You can tell his voice is cracking. He's unsure of everything that he's saying now. The old confident Vaush is gone. He's like, wait a second here. We're not talking about gender studies anymore.
Right.
There's real stuff people can look up on the internet and tell me I'm wrong.
In England was there by blood. In America, the most powerful person, Washington, was elected. Admittedly by white landlords, so
that's not true. 70% of them. Oh, yeah, landowners is accurate for the South, but in the North, almost everyone could vote. Yeah, but I mean, by that logic, Britain is not a democracy today.
No, because the Queen doesn't have any power now. The function of the government.
The most powerful people in Britain, the people making the most decisions at the time, were prime ministers. Lord North was the guy who Lord North, the prime minister of the Tory party, was the guy that masterminded the American Revolutionary War.
The king had enormous.
I know he's so grabbing.
I mean, listen, I don't know any of this shit either. I don't care. I don't care what happens in proto-American land either. But I'm not trying to argue with this guy. This is so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. This is definitely a section where he's just totally crapping on Vaush.
Yeah, he's got him out of his element. And I think a lot of it was that I don't think he's really for government taking over healthcare. I think he was just throwing that out.
Yeah, you could be right.
To basically get Vaush to quit fucking around with the why stuff. Look at all this stuff we agree on. I'm for government just controlling health. I think they should control transportation too.
Right.
Yeah. Next thing now, Vaush is completely on his territory.
Enormous power at the time that we left. Yeah. No, this is highly tangential.
Okay,
you said you have to leave in 7 minutes.
Then it's an integrated system of hard revolutionary war.
The king had enormous power at the time that we left. Yeah. No, this is highly tangential. You said you have to leave in 7 minutes.
That's not true. The king had kind of been gutted, had a lot of his power gutted for the business by businessmen with the Magna Carta.
Well, I don't know enough about it to comment, but I just think it's funny that he's like, he's like losing. He's like, let's change the subject.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
He's like, whatever. Listen, if you just want to say you don't know, just admit it. Just be like, well, I don't know. I'm not knowledgeable on the subject. I'll look into it. Like, just be honest about it. Don't be like, you say you have to go. Let's talk about something different.